Welcome to Daily Meditation with Sangha Live.
Welcome everyone to Sangha Live Daily Meditation Practice. My name is Miles Kessler and I am here this week leading a week of daily meditations with you all. The general topic of the week, of the month, is interconnectedness. The topic that I chose for this week is practicing Dharma in a polarized world. On Monday, we looked at the Dharma of interconnectedness. On Tuesday, we looked at Dharma practice in a polarized world. Yesterday, we spoke about that move from dissonance, which is dukkha, accepting and embracing that, from dissonance, the truth of dissonance, the noble truth of dissonance, moving into resonance and into coherence. That's that inner path of practice. Our highest meditation states are coherent states. Today, we're going to be talking about understanding the spiritual bypass, which was a question that came up 2 days ago. Natalie had asked that question. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk about, it's kind of two topics. I'll figure it out how I'm going to combine them tomorrow, but conflict-informed Dharma and or sameness and difference. We're going to kind of combine those two topics for tomorrow's session. Yesterday we did a hot seat session instead of Q&A. Today we're back to our normal format. I'll give a talk. We'll sit for 20-25 minutes and then I'll answer some questions at the end. As always, if any questions come up for you, remember when you're at the leading edge of your practice, 1 foot in what you know, 1 foot in the unknown, that kind of, there's always a sense of groping forward into the dark when we're on the edge of our practice. That's where the questions are the most relevant. So any questions like that come up, please bring them in. I'll answer them at the end. If they don't fit into this session, then put them in the forum. Today and tomorrow, I'll continue to monitor Sangha Live's forum, and if a question comes up there, I'll do my best to get to it, time allowing. Okay. Enough announcements. So today's topic is going to be understanding the spiritual bypass. Understanding the spiritual bypass. My claim is that if you're practicing meditation, especially if you're progressing through the meditative states, you are also spiritually bypassing. That's my claim. My claim is that it's guaranteed that you will spiritually bypass from one degree to another. It might just be one afternoon. Oh, I spiritual bypass and now I'm back to reality or whatever. It could be for some months until you move into a deeper state of practice. It could be for some years. Some of us belong to communities. And maybe if we're dedicated to Dharma, we belong to communities for a longer period of time. Lots of good things about those communities. But when you're around for long enough, you start to also realize that, no community is perfect. No Sangha is perfect. And even though we may organize around amazing teachers, with incredible wisdom flowing, they're also human beings and they also have human shortcomings, and no teacher is perfect. They said the Buddha was perfect, but I don't know. I wasn't there. Let's assume he was. For us normies, no teacher is perfect. And sometimes that gets covered up in our Dharma practice. It gets swept under the rug. It gets explained away. It gets bypassed. It is a fact the shadow of the teacher multiplies in the shadow of the community. It is a fact that whatever shadows I have in my daily life, for whatever reason, God bless us all, they get brought into our meditation practice. And I guess there's two types of shadows. Excuse me, two types of bypass. One is just a simple bypass, and the other is a bypass that's kind of connected to our personal shadows, which we'll kind of go into. We're not doing shadow work, yeah, but I'm going to explain the difference between those two. And then we'll ground it in practice a little bit later. So first we need to make a distinction between what is a bypass, a material bypass versus a spiritual bypass. A material bypass is preferring something material. My phone, How many times have you seen somebody walking across the street with their, looking at their phone? Every day. I cycle through the city, and I'm half of my cycling through the city, even though there's bicycle paths, is avoiding people walking down the street with their phone. That's a material bypass. They're just, rather than be present in the moment with the heat and the city street and the noise or whatever, they're in their phone. I'm guilty of that occasionally. If I get something message or something, it pulls me away. A spiritual bypass is just looking for some satisfaction or pleasure in something material rather than being present with what's actually going on. Mindfulness practice, meditation practice really kind of helps to reorganize us around the present moment. A spiritual bypass is taking that same impulse into our spiritual practice. And it's basically having a preference of transcendence over immanence. That I would much prefer, especially when you start to get you start to leave the shallow end of the pool in meditation. Those early stages, there's just a lot of hindrances. There's a lot of efforting. There's a lot of stuff in my mind around that second insight. A lot of regrets are coming up, and it's like, it's God bless us all. Those first three stages are challenging, and they're kind of a washing machine quality. And it's like, you meditate and you want a little bit of material bypass. I remember I was meditating in Burma once, and I was going on a long 4-month retreat, or actually I think it was going on my 10-month retreat. And I got a message the second day that something about my visa didn't work. So I had to get on a plane, fly back to Bangkok. It's like a 30-minute flight. Spend 4 days in Bangkok, and then come back on retreat in Burma. Oh, there was a part of me that was happy because I knew they had ice cream in Bangkok. I don't like Bangkok. It's very hedonistic. It's very noisy. But at least I could get some ice cream. So I was leaving my spiritual bubble, which I was struggling in, hindrances galore. And I went and had some ice cream. Oh, landed, got my room in a beeline for the Swanson or whatever kind of ice cream it was. So, okay, fine. That's the way it is at the beginning. We are overwhelmed with hindrances. But once we navigate that, once our practice works through those stages and we start to enter the deep end, intermediate, then we start to have some pretty far out experiences, moments of silence, moments of distortion in the body, moments of distortion in the field, moments of non-self. Those 7 factors of awakening begin to pop up in our mind, and we start to really experience great concentration, incredible ability to investigate our situation. We're in the process. Our mindfulness is super sharp and clear. We get tranquility and calm and lots of joy coming up, and even some equanimity. Oh my God. All that noise and confusion in the daily life, let me just go meditate. That's good for the meditation, but it might not be good for the laundry, so to speak. All the things that we need to do in our daily life. That's having a preference towards immanence having a preference towards transcendence, we get into our greater meditative states over immanence. What's right in front of me? A spiritual bypass can be in two ways. It can be one, I just like those states. So whatever's going on, I just want to go into those states. And that's beneficial for your meditation practice. Yeah. I'm not necessarily avoiding something in my daily life. I'm just preferring towards that. The other type of spiritual bypass is our shadows, our personal shadows, things that I'm actually avoiding in life, whether I'm meditating or not. That difficult conversation that needs to be had. And I'm a conflict averse type person. I'm avoiding that. I don't want to do that. I don't want to get into that conversation. Maybe it'll just go away. Maybe if I don't say anything, it'll disappear. Meditate. It's not there in meditation. That's the beautiful thing about as we get into the deeper into the poem meditation. When we start to have a sense of no self, you'll start to understand that there's also no problems. No self equals no problem. No self also implies that there's no other. All those I'm that person I'm thinking about or obsessing about this or that relationship or whatever. When I drop into no self, it's also no other. And when there's no other, there's no fear. No fear that my boundary is going to be whatever. No self, no problem. No other, no fear. That's a perennial truth. I believe it's actually from the Upanishads from 3,000 years ago. Where there is where there is other, there too you shall find fear. No other, no fear. Oh my God. Can you imagine walking through the world with no fear? Can you imagine that? When you get into deeper meditation, that's it. That's what those states are about. They also happen to be temporary. We have to come back to the immanence of life. And sometimes it's our shadow that is bypassing the things that we need to face in life. It's just flat out avoidance. I remember when I had been, it was probably, I've done a total altogether, something like 3 years of silent retreats, with a teacher, like in Burma and Nepal, daily guidance type of thing. And I had, the things that, the obsessive thoughts that would come up in my mind, the greed, hatred, and delusion, I'd gotten pretty intimate with those, and I'd worked my way through the hindrances. And I'd gotten to the point where it would arise, I could immediately see it arising, differentiate and observe it with mindfulness. And I was well into dissolution at that period. So just like anything else, it would just dissolve. And I'm back in emptiness. And then I was doing winter retreats, and then off season, I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was studying to become a therapist, Greenberg therapy, which is the therapy I ended up doing for several years. She was into it. She was like, and she was a good student, and she was sharp, and we were sitting on the beach one day, and something came up between us. I don't even remember what it was. She said something, triggered me. The heat of anger came up, and I'd just been on retreat, so I saw it, differentiated, observed it. It dissolved, and I was back in the beauty of the beach. She said, "What did you just do?" She called me on it because we were in the middle of something, and she, I don't think she was trying to push my button, but whatever it was, she did. And she said, "What did you just do?" And I realized the first coin that dropped in me is like, no, this is my practice. This is what I have been doing day in, day out for probably 2 years at the time, something like that, on retreats. And I would see the greed, the hatred, the delusion come up, and I could differentiate immediately, dissolve, and I was back in peace. But what I wasn't seeing was that I couldn't, the button that was pushed, the trigger that was triggered, dissolved. And I was back in the Dharma. But what I couldn't see was that button that dissolved didn't go away. It just dissolved. It just got bypassed. And she was studying to become a therapist. She understood that, even though she was also probably in the middle of some triggered as well, but she was smart enough to understand. So wait a second, no, this kind of trigger area, this is where we need to be in our relationship. This is what we need to work out. And I couldn't deny that she was right. That when you're integrating the shadow, ideally with a therapist or a guide or a spiritual brother, spiritual sister, spiritual friend, when you're integrating shadow, you need the heat. We need an environment that's safe enough to let the heat come up and process that. And that which has been disconnected, disowned, pushed out of my sense of self, until somebody comes along, hits the button, and then it comes up. Of course, it gets projected onto the other person. No, that person is the problem. Maybe they are, but it doesn't deny the fact that I had a trigger that was triggered and the heat came up. When we're doing a therapeutic work, when we're integrating our shadow, we need the heat. We need mindfulness. It doesn't work without mindfulness. Maybe we even need a friend or a therapist in that role to help us to kind of more or less coach us through it. But to integrate the shadow, we need the heat. We don't need to bypass. Bypassing, in a way, strengthens the shadow. That's the problem with the spiritual bypass. It can strengthen our shadow. Does that make sense? Can I hear an amen in the chat? But here's what we have to understand. Sangha life. Yeah, I also have an Aikido. I also have an Aikido community. I also have a meditation group. Our group, Sangha Live, all the Sanghas. We are here for meditative insight. What we are doing in this practice is we are prioritizing insight. The method is mindfulness, and what we do, amen, what we do when we're prioritizing insight is something comes up, we differentiate and we observe it until we get deep enough insight and we start to see the universal characteristics of anicca, dukkha, and anatta, that it's impermanent, that it's unsatisfying, and that ultimately it's non-self, it's empty. That the seeing of those three insights is what leads us deeper and deeper into spiritual awakening. Seeing those three things with mindfulness leads us into deeper spiritual awakening. To see that, we must differentiate from and observe. That's what mindfulness is. It's a dualistic practice. There's a part of my mind, a knowing, basic, raw awareness of what's arising in my experience, and I can know it. I can know its characteristics, its heat, its desire, its aversion, its delusion, and I can know that it's impermanent, that it's fundamentally unsatisfying, and that it's empty ultimately. I can know that. That's what leads me forward in the spiritual path. Make sense? If we're not careful, that's what also leads to spiritual bypass. If things are coming up based on my history and I'm avoiding them with my meditation practice, that's a spiritual bypass. When we're doing integration work or therapeutic work, we don't differentiate from and observe until it dissolves. My mommy issue came up. The therapist says, that's interesting. Tell me about it. Hang on. Let me differentiate. Let me dissolve it. Okay, it's gone. Yeah, my mom, blah, blah, blah. No. Good therapy is like, well, wait a second. How do you feel about your mom? Oh, my mom. We need the heat. Therapy puts us right there in the middle of the heat. Hopefully, and when I say therapy, I'm speaking, of course, generally. I'm even speaking simplistically and maybe the ideal situation. We need the heat. We need to understand, because by staying in the heat, we can mindfully go into it, allow it to process, and we'll understand what's at the bottom. We might even understand what caused the original split, what caused the part that was just intolerable for me So it got pushed into my unconscious. It got suppressed. And because it's suppressed in my shadow, it oppresses me from time to time. And because I haven't worked with that with mindfulness, I project that out and say, well, it's not me. I don't have issues around sexuality. It's those people. I don't have issues around religion. It's those religions. I don't have issues about politics. It's those guys. That's why, whenever we have like a residue of energy from some event during the day, that's a beautiful reminder, a beautiful reflection that there's something here I haven't integrated. Let me integrate. Let me do some integration work, 3-2-1 process or some type of shadow work, or, next time you go to therapy, there you go. That's what you bring to therapy. And it'll be an effective session, maybe even a wonderful session. But when we sit on the cushion, we're prioritizing something else. And that's what we need to understand. What are we prioritizing? My suggestion is when you're doing meditation, sitting on the cushion meditating, prioritize insight. If, let's say, a mommy issue comes up, just a silly example, and you decide, look, today I really need to go into this, and you sit there for 30 minutes and you kind of process it. It was great. There's nothing wrong with that. It's certainly beneficial. It will not move you forward on your meditation path. Won't. It might remove a block on your meditation path, that's for sure. But it doesn't push insight further. It's important, healthy integration work. Do not misunderstand. But when we're sitting, if we're prioritizing insight, a thought of my mother comes up. It's phenomena. An itch on my nose comes up. It's phenomena. A flashing light appears in my visual field. It's phenomena. My body distorts and stretches out. It's phenomena. It squeezes down. It's phenomena. The breath gets tight and effortful. It's just phenomena. It's just phenomena. And all phenomena, all the myriad of phenomena that we can have arising in our meditation practice, fundamentally is the same at its essence. It is conditioned by 3 universal characteristics: anicca, dukkha, anatta. And when we see with mindfulness, with differentiated awareness, not identifying with, but observe phenomena as it's arising mindfully, we know it. We know the characteristics. And as that mindfulness sinks, we'll know the deeper universal characteristics of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. That's what leads us through the stages of insight. That's what leads us up to dissolution, where those things just dissolve pretty quickly when our practice is effective. Imagine, for those who haven't really experienced dissolution yet, imagine all that stuff that we're dealing with in the meditation. The first 10 minutes of the mind just settling down, and there's restlessness and sleepiness and desires and aversions and fears and doubts and all that's confusion, all that stuff. When you start to enter the deep into the pool, you get to the point where you can differentiate and observe it, and it just dissolves. Oh my God. It's such one. Then your meditation really becomes a refuge. But if you're not doing shadow work, your refuge can also become a spiritual bypass. So think of these as 2 different practices. They should be integrated into some type of integral spiritual practice. Yeah. But what do you want to prioritize? Many people in the mindfulness field, that they just got into meditation because they went through mindfulness. They're also coming from the mental health field, kind of. So naturally, their mindfulness practice is going to, or their meditation practice is going to be really more supportive of their therapeutic process. Maybe they're therapists even. Others that are just hardcore meditators, they're only doing meditation, they haven't done much therapy. It's good to do some therapy because that will definitely support your meditation practice. Definitely support your meditation. It will clear up a lot of confusion. Therapy prioritizes integration. Meditation prioritizes insight. Mindfulness is the key practice for both of those paths. And ideally, we want those paths to come together. So let's prioritize a little bit of meditation. When you're sitting, remember our fundamental mindfulness practice is whatever arises, not everything that arises, but whatever arises that's dominant, we want to be able to differentiate from and observe it with mindfulness. Mindfulness is a part of the mind that can observe an object. If you were here for the hot seat interview yesterday, I was working with, sorry, I forgot her name. Hope she's here today. To anchor yourself in one object, as a good place to kind of settle your practice into. If you want to practice choiceless awareness, that's fantastic. It is part of our practice. In the overview of insight, there's certain stages that are kind of choiceless awareness needed. It's actually it happens automatically. Other stages are one pointed. It's needed. It happens automatically. You can choose to use either one of those. I'm going to guide a little bit of one pointed awareness on the breath, mindfulness on the breath. Should you have a different method, just apply what I'm saying to whatever you're practicing. Finding a comfortable position. And before we actually get in, take a moment to reflect on your own spiritual practice and reflect, is there anything about your practice, past or present, that sounds like it might be a spiritual bypass? Just take a moment and reflect. Think about that. And let us anchor ourselves in the thought that therapeutic process or shadow work is all about integration. We're integrating the disowned aspects of ourself into a freely functioning human being. Meditation is about prioritizing insight. Insight is our ability to see deeper and deeper into the three universal characteristics of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and non-self. Our core practice is mindfulness, bare experience, a bare knowing of your experience, with differentiated awareness and observing the characteristics in the body and the characteristics in the mind. Allowing your mind to settle on the breath. Specifically observing the breath in the belly as you breathe in, the breath in the belly as you breathe out. Noticing that there are specific sensations in the expansion of the belly as you breathe in. Like a balloon expands, you can feel and see specific characteristics of that expansion. And noticing the specific characteristics of the breath in the belly as there's a contraction or a deflation in the belly. This is not analysis. This is not searching for anything. Simply allow your awareness to rest on the breath in the belly and know what's there. Notice if the breath is long, average, or short. Notice if the breath is loose, average, or tight. Notice if the breath is fast, average, or slow. Notice if it's comfortable or uncomfortable, pleasant or unpleasant. Notice if the breath is smooth or rough. No agenda, no preference, no manipulating the experience. Should preference or agenda or manipulation arise in the mind, it's completely okay. It's part of the experience. Be mindful of that. Notice that and allow it to relax and return to the process in the breath. Following the whole process of the breath, notice how it comes to an end. Does it slow down and stop gradually? Does it suddenly stop? Is it a smooth stop? Is it a rough stop? Is it an abrupt stop? Does it immediately turn around to the next breath with no stop? And if it stops, is there a pause between the in-breath and the out-breath? Is there a pause between the out-breath and the in-breath? Naturally. Should there be a pause? What is the quality of that pause? Is there tension? Is it relaxed? Is it peaceful? Is there anticipation? Is there like a pregnant moment there? Whatever. Just knowing what's arising in the present moment. And should you see the entire process of the breath from beginning through middle to the end, noticing the pause, and from the pause, noticing the very beginning of the next breath, through the middle to the end, and the pause. Should your mind click into the entire process, notice if there's one smooth movement or if there's fluctuations in the movement, subtle rhythms inside the breath. Maybe you see waves of movement as you're breathing in. Maybe there's steps, maybe there's sections, maybe there's vibrations in the whole movement. These are all possible meditation experiences. But our practice is to simply anchor the mind on the breath. Be and be with the breath, knowing its nature, knowing its characteristics, knowing how it changes if it changes. With each breath, in each moment, moment by moment, breath by breath. Bring your mindfulness back to the body. Feel the body. Bringing your mindfulness to the breath. And feel the breath. Bring your mindfulness to the mind and know your mental state. Feeling the space on the inside. And as you slowly open your eyes, coming out of the meditation, feeling the space on the outside.
Today's podcast is an offering to you from our archive of freely available live daily classes. We make wisdom teachings and meditations as freely available as possible to as many people as wish to practice. You can help ensure we can continue to support a worldwide Sangha by leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts, by sharing this with someone who'd be interested, and by offering a small financial support at sangha.live/donate.